What if the most dangerous thing in a real crisis isn't the event itself, but the way we've all been taught to live our lives? We're about to dig into a pretty radical idea, the mental shift you have to make from being a passive consumer to an active producer. And honestly, it might just be the one thing that truly matters for resilience. So the whole thing kicks off with this really provocative claim. When things go seriously wrong for a long time, the people who are most vulnerable are often the ones who are most comfortable right now, the folks who completely depend on systems they have zero control over. And this really gets right to the heart of it. It's not about being good or bad, it's about two totally different ways of thinking. The consumer, well, they wait for someone else to fix the problem. The producer, on the other hand, is the one who fixes the problem. This whole explainer is really built around that one crucial shift, from thinking your credit card will save you to knowing that a simple can opener is what you actually need. Okay, so to really get why this mindset shift is so important, we have to look at what the source calls the sophisticated pet trap. It's a really powerful way to think about the hidden dangers that are lurking inside all of our modern comforts. Look, the argument is pretty blunt. For the most part, we're like highly sophisticated pets. We've been trained to just expect that our needs will be met. We don't go out and hunt, right? We wait for the kibble to show up in the bowl day after day. And you can see this playing out all around us every single day. Just think about it for a second. Our most basic needs for survival, water, security, food, they all come from somewhere else. A utility company, a subscription service, a massive global supply chain. We've basically outsourced our own existence. And that is the huge reality check. A major grid-down scenario is pretty much like the owners leaving the house and just not coming back. The kibble isn't coming. And if the only skill you've ever practiced is waiting for the bowl to get filled, you are suddenly in a world of hurt. So if our mindset is the first big vulnerability, what's the second? Well, this is where the problem stops being psychological and becomes very, very physical. We're now dealing with what's called biology's brutal checklist. These are the hard, scientific rules that completely take over when society stops working. And the most critical thing to get here is the rule of threes. This isn't just a helpful guideline, okay? It's like a law of physics for your body. It sets your priorities for you whether you like it or not. And nature absolutely does not accept extensions or excuses. Just look at this countdown. When people think about survival, most of them immediately jump to the last item on the list, food. But what biology tells us is that you'll be long gone from dehydration or exposure way before starvation even becomes an issue. Your survival plan has to follow this order, no exceptions. To see how this actually works, let's imagine a hypothetical person. We'll call him law-abiding Larry. He's a good dude, a total consumer. He's done everything right his whole life. But by day 4, there's no running water, and desperation starts to set in. He makes a choice that, in the moment, feels like his only option. And boom, the consequence is immediate. It's biological. That one desperate drink introduces a nasty parasite, Giardia, into his system. That leads to vomiting and diarrhea, which in turn causes rapid, and I mean severe, dehydration. And this is the really brutal part. An illness that we would normally fix with a quick trip to the doctor, it becomes a killer. In a world without IV drips to rehydrate him, Larry's small, understandable mistake has just become a death sentence. And that is why having a plan for water is priority number 1, period. All right, so let's say you've got your biology sorted out. The very next threat that pops up is other people. This section completely flips the script on what security really means in a crisis. It argues that your best defense isn't being strong, it's being invisible. So let me just ask you, straight up, what do you think it is? Is it gangs of marauders? Is it starvation? The government? The argument here is that it's actually something way more subtle than any of that. The answer? It's just being noticed. Simple as that. In a world full of have-nots, the second you are perceived as a have, you paint a giant target on your back. The single most dangerous thing you can do is draw attention to yourself. And the strategy to deal with this is called the gray man philosophy. It's a complete 180 from how we usually think about security, right? We think bigger locks, stronger doors, better alarms. But in a real breakdown, all those things don't just protect you. They advertise that you have something worth protecting. Real security is when nobody even knows you're there. And these are the exact kinds of things that turn your safe house into a beacon. I mean, try to see it from the perspective of someone who's cold, hungry, whose kids are crying. That humming sound of a generator,
That's not just noise, that's the sound of electricity and warmth. The smell of you grilling a steak, that's not just dinner, that's a signal of life-saving food. Every single thing you do to make yourself comfortable can become a magnet for desperate people.
All right, let's get to our final section where we really focus on the solution. We're going to talk about the producer's real toolkit. And I'll tell you right now, it's probably not what you're thinking. It has way less to do with the gear you own and way more to do with what's going on between your ears. We all know the stereotype, don't we? The hardcore survivalist who's obsessed with having the coolest, most tactical gear you can imagine. People get hyper-focused on the hardware, like that fancy knife with a compass in the handle and 14 different serrated edges.
But the whole point here is that the ultimate survival tool isn't something you can buy in a store. It's the software that's already running in your head. It's that ability to look at a problem, improvise, and build a solution out of whatever's lying around. That, right there, is the real producer mindset.
So how do you actually train that brain? I mean, it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to actually do it. The suggestion here is a dry run, a challenge. For just 12 hours, you simulate a crisis. And by doing that, you find all your hidden weaknesses in a totally safe, low-stakes way. And the most important part? Practice turns that terrifying feeling of panic into the much more manageable feeling of annoyance.
And you know what? That problem-solving brain works a whole lot better when it's connected to other problem-solving brains, which is why we have to bust one of the biggest myths in survival, the lone wolf. The idea that one person can make it all alone against the world, that's a cool movie plot, not a real-world strategy.
I mean, think about it like this. You might be an absolute genius at purifying water. But what happens when you slip and get a deep cut that needs stitches? Suddenly, your neighbor who's a nurse is the most valuable person on the planet. A small group of people pooling their skills can become so much more resilient than any one person could ever hope to be. So we end up right back where we started with this incredibly powerful question. It really forces you to take a hard look in the mirror and decide. This isn't about trying to predict the future. It's about choosing your mindset right here, right now. Are you going to be the one waiting for the bowl to be filled, or are you going to be the one learning how to fill it yourself?